Sehr geehrte Damen und Herren.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'll please kindly ask you to regain your seats. Afterwards, you will have a photo opportunity, so please take your seats. Now we would like to start off with this conference. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, I wish to extend a very warm welcome to you to this opening conference of the ITB Berlin. Most of you are familiar with the ITB Berlin. I don't have to explain to you that this is the world's leading trade show on tourism. At the same time, it is kind of a family reunion where all countries of the world can meet without having to engage in political discussions. And therefore, we are particularly pleased to say that the 47th installment of the ITB once again provides you with a comprehensive overlook of tourism and travel from a global perspective. We wish to extend a particular welcome and express our gratitude to our host country, Indonesia, Disli, and to the Minister of Tourism of Indonesia, who has joined us here. More than 70,000 tropical islands. It is a wonderful tourism destination, and we wish to introduce you to this tourism destination with a short video clip. So please roll the film.
Life begins when we discover new things. This journey is simply endless. Discovering is so easy. Makes you realize there's always something more. The air I breathe, everything I sense makes me alive. Explore the darkness, embrace the light. Follow the passion that always craves for adventure, while the mainstream here only means to be challenged and becomes one. So exciting! Live the wildlife. Sometimes you feel you've discovered something. But then you realize it's the soul that tries to reach out beyond your mind. Losing and then finding yourself never been this good. Life that charged you beyond limit.
We belong here. Where the vibes from our old songs returning. Tears of a longing, Lord, we're here again.
It's the library. Don't have to push any button to send direct message.
Calling,
It's always amazing to understand the unique perspectives of the culture.
rain of reasons falling.
The air, the breezes, the scenes becoming part of the nature.
We belong, we belong, we belong, we belong to
Feed the wonder. Feed your imagination.
and the memories yet to come soon.
The mutual feeling. It's everything that heart cannot lie about.
Will lead us back to you again. Songs of seasons calling.
Some call this an adventure.
We belong, we belong, we belong here.
While it's a journey, we just can't stop revealing the beauty that lies
The
within.
vibes from our road songs
Together.
turning.
Feeling
Where the
is
vibes
believing.
from our old songs returning.
Wonderful.
Wir kommen nun zu Ihren Gesprächen.
Okay, we would now like to introduce your interlocutors here. I'd like to introduce the gentleman and the lady on the panel here. To my left, Dr. Christian Göke, the Managing Director of Messe Berlin, and he will be walking you through what you can expect this year at ITB. The host country is engaging in very ambitious plans that they will present today to develop tourism, and we will hear from Minister. Warm welcome to Her Excellency Elka Pangestu, Minister for Tourism and the Creative Industry of the Republic of Indonesia. And the German tourism industry, its position, and what we need to demand from politics and decision makers is something that we will hear from Mr. Michael French, President of the Federal Association of German Tourism Industry, and then Mr. Büchy, President of the German Travel Association, will walk us through the top destinations and results of 2012 and what to expect from 2013. And we're particularly pleased to greet a representative of the UNWTO, Marcel Favilla, Executive Director for Competitiveness, External Relations and Partnership. Please forgive me for having misspelt your title at that point. He will give us a global perspective on growth figures and the tourism industry. We will start off with ITB Berlin, and I would now like to pass the floor to Dr. Göke, who will walk us through those figures. Thank you very much, and a very warm welcome. I'm very grateful to Ms. Pangestu, who has just offered us some very beguiling images that I think that is the best way to start off this day. And I think that the weather is also adding its bit to this. I think in the last 13 years of ITB, it is the very first time that we started off under a stark blue sky. And what is taking place at the ITB is really in stark contrast to the very relaxing music and relaxing images that we just saw. We're at the beginning of a couple of days that are charged with extreme dynamism and dynamics. That is something that we put in the headline as the ITB this year. Most of you, it's really about this very strong market, and that is what we're trying to reflect at the ITB. This is what we do every year, and what we experience, this great diversity, the broad spectrum of market participants who come together here so that each and every one of you has an access to this extremely complex and diverse market. What we try to do is provide access, provide overviews, and draw up the main instructions. That is what I'll try to walk you through right now. I'll give you the general picture, and then I'll highlight 3 short examples for the kind of impetus that we're trying to crystallize for our market participants. We're not trying to structure the path for them, but provide some impetus, food for thought, also as to how they can access the market. And this is also part and parcel of the concept of the ITB, always trying to be as close to and as up-to-date as possible. So what are the great salient figures? And the name of the team, Dr. Göke and Mr. Kunze, I am pleased to say that demand has never been as high as this year. The entire surface of the trade, or the entire trade show area, has been fully booked, and we try to meet this growing demand by going vertical. So in this case, we have more double-tier stands than at any point in the history of this ITB. So 10,086 exhibitors from more than for approximately 188 countries. So this really reflects the kind of dynamism that is propelling this ITB. I'll just want to give you some examples as to how we try to trigger growth also in mature markets. This is also by focusing on niche markets, and a good example for that is travel technology, our sector that we've been steadily building up for the past couple of years. It is the largest global offer in this area. All halls have been fully booked since the end of December. We have hotel software, booking engines, all of them are on the ground with their stands. But the other aspect, e-travel world, is also writing quite a success story and has been posting successes over the last years. Marketing, search engine optimization. You are all familiar with the buzzwords. And on Saturday, the 9th of March, we will enlarge this with an extra event in order to cover these this very large demand. The other niche sector is LGBT, lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transsexual travel. The Pink Pavilion is the globally largest targeted, tailor-made offer for travel in this sector. And the Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transsexual Travel Association has always been a partner, the LGBT. And I'd like to also mention that Argentina, Bulgaria, Greece, Thailand, Cyprus, and other countries are now coming on board and are offering tailor-made offers for this particular sector and segment of travel. Corporate social responsibility, another aspect, is also celebrating 10 years of presence at the ITB. It's difficult to believe, and actually quite outstanding that this has already been part and parcel of the ITB for the past 10 years. And allow me to say to Madam Minister that we've also tried to provide something that leads to your country. This is this catalog that we have published for the ITB that is has a carbon-neutral imprint, and we're trying to also support this aspect of climate-friendly travel in doing so. The second aspect is going into new markets. What are we doing there? We try to provide business models, strategies, and impetus to our customers, and I'd like to give you some examples there. You know that in the last couple of years we've always tried to market specific destinations, and this we do so in a cross-boundary fashion. This year, for example, we focus on culture in Azerbaijan. In the last years, we started promoting the 8 riparian countries bordering the Danube. We also had a Silk Road pavilion that we added to the ITB. And what I'm trying to do is, or what I'm trying to explain is the following. This specific form of promoting cross-boundary destinations, i.e. that encompass several countries or go region-wide. This reflects very well the fundamental image and character of the ITB. We are not engaged in any policies or politics. We are engaged in trying to promote across the boundaries the force for peace that represents tourism and travel as such. And then we have a very different topic, bloggers. We've worked strenuously this year in incorporating citizens' participation, and we've tried to also really introduce this also to our clients here at Messe Berlin. We have a matchmaking event that will take place here on the 7th and 8th of March. We have more than 250 accredited bloggers who will be joining us here at ITB Berlin, who will be on the fairgrounds, and also within the framework of Focusrite, the Media Summit, this topic of blogging will be broached. We have several panel debates and many more events surrounding this topic. The third impulse for new markets is provided by our Congress, the ITB Congress, and I'd like to highlight two examples. First of all is the Travel at ITB Convention. Asia is witnessing the rise of a new generation with new demands for travel, and the task is really to try and flesh out tailor-made offers for this new generation. And then the new ITB Asia at ITB Berlin convention. It is really one of the gems of the outbound travel in Southeast Asia. India is being highlighted there, and that is something that we want to do at this event, that really should not underestimate the potential of this particular country, and we will provide information and events to that effect. The last part, what do we as ITB engage in order to maintain the ITB in its agility and keeping it alive and to continue along this path of providing the broadest possible reflection of activities in the tourism area. We have the ITB Buyers Circle that we set up last year. We have this year enlarged the number to up to 600 buyers that we invite to the ITB. Last year, the 500 invited buyers actually had moved a total volume of purchases of 1.5 billion euros, and that is very important. So we see this is a very international group of buyers. Every continent is represented on this group, and we also have the tour operators that are involved there, and quite a number of business deals were finalized here. More than 20% of buyers from this group finalized business deals to the tune of 1.5 billion euros at Messe Berlin, at the ITB. And this confirms or comes as a confirmation that this instrument is something that we wish to pursue and continue to enhance. So, last but not least, the most successful creation of the last couple of years, the ITB Congress. We're looking back at 10 years of this Congress. And if you look at the development of the last 10 years, it is by far the largest European travel Congress. And of course, it's always a question whether it's globally the largest, but as far as Europe is concerned, we're very confident that this is indeed something that we can confirm. More than 420 speakers, more than 200 sessions, very broad topics, mass tourism and new technologies, new tendencies. We were able to latch onto a very positive development because we were lucky enough to have chosen the right topics at the right time. At a very early stage, we included space travel, children's travel. We included blogging, solar mobility at the right time. And this year, we are also confident that water scarcity, mass travel, new technologies are three very salient topics, very topical issues that are at the forefront of development, and we believe that providing this brief tour d'horizon that I just gave you, we're also providing you with the kind of expectation that you're at the right place and the right time over the next couple of days. This is the relevant community, and you will find the right activities and hopefully the right interlocutors, if we've done our job well, who will be able to facilitate your work. This is what we strive to achieve, and we are all on the same page in order to ensure that this will take place in the next 5 days. We hope that in the next 5 days this will be the case, and we thank you for your attention in this case. And without your attention, we know that this would not be possible. You are the leverage, the fact, well, the instrument that carries all of this out into the world, propagates it, and thank you very much for your attention, and I'm happy to pass on the floor now. Thank you.
And now the floor is yours, Dr. Frenzel. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am very pleased to be able to speak to you in my new function as the President of the Federal Association of the German Tourism Industry. As you know, I'm at the same time also the Chairman of the International Association, and this gives me the opportunity to also highlight some of the initiatives that I would like to introduce to you and to give you an international perspective of things too, because the issues and the questions that need to be raised are more or less identical. Let me first of all talk about the development of the year of 2012. For you, it is probably more interesting what we think is the forecast for 2013, what we can expect, what the top subjects will be, and then I'll be also talking about some basic claims, some areas where we think that we as an association need to make demands to policies and policymakers. So politics for growth is an issue. The creation of framework conditions that allows our industry, that is a growth industry, to actually grow on. And with that, I will come to speak about the developments of the year 2012. The year 2012 was a very successful one for tourism in Germany, but also for international tourism, as it were. You probably remember the figures of the UNWTO that reported 1 billion tourists worldwide, which is an impressive figure. The forecasts for the future are very positive. Until 2020, we expect some 1.6 billion tourists, and this, of course, will mean new challenges for infrastructure, for policymakers, but also for us as the industry representatives and the companies involved in the different spheres of our industry. In Germany, and we are here at the German press conference, Germany also benefits from this very, very clear readiness to go traveling. And to just give you some figures for the overnight stays, you can find them in the press statements, of course, in detail. We've had more than 400 million overnight stays for the first time, which is enormous. And especially the increase in our foreign guests is impressive. If you go into further detail, you can see that it is especially in the conurbations in the biggest cities, like in Berlin, for example, we've had a growth of more than 11%, which is very impressive indeed. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to talk to the governing mayor of Wolverine, and in Berlin we now have some 130,000 hotel beds, and that is a very clear sign of growth. The guest figures for domestic guests, some 3% increase here, but the overall restaurant business, for example, and we as association represent different areas of the tourism industry, so restaurants and restaurant owners also reported a plus of 2.1%, the hotel owners of 3.1%, and restaurants again with 1.7%, so a good and positive growth. In the field of aviation, which is also part of our association, with the number of passengers was around 200 million passengers, but we have to state, and this is actually where some of the effects become clear that I will talk about in further detail in a moment, that some of the rather unbeneficial frameworks, like, for example, special taxes that we have in Germany and emission trading schemes, that all of these are a burden for the aviation industry, and that we have to struggle with that. And these are actually an impediment to growth. We've had a growth of 1.1%, a rather weak growth compared to the previous years, but there was still growth. But this is where we will have to become active, because kerosene, that is jet fuel prices, for example, are an issue, but also the aviation tax that I just mentioned. So we will have to struggle for better framework conditions. The railway and bus service providers also grew. 11 billion train and bus rides were booked in last year. Enormous figures that show quite clearly how important the public infrastructure is. This holds true for long-haul destinations in railways with 4.5 more passengers, but also for long-haul bus travels, 5.1% growth here. Coaches and buses, these are a very important pillar of our logistic concept here, with more than 100 million bus trips and a turnover of 1.4 billion euros. This industry is, this coach and bus industry is a very important pillar indeed for domestic tourism. As regards business trips in 2012, of course, following the discussions of the economic and financial crisis, there were some dampening measures that were taken, especially by the companies, when it came to business overnight stays. But as a whole, I have to repeat, it was a very positive year for the tourism industry. It was a very positive year for Germany, and you know that Germany performed somewhat differently from other countries, economically speaking, so we can still be very satisfied. What is more interesting for you, of course, is the forecast for 2013. What is very important is that people's desire for travel remains unabated, and according to all surveys, and Mr. Büchy is going to talk about these trends for the future, all of these actually can only corroborate this. We, as the industry, we always depend on the framework conditions. We depend on the question of the euro. Of course, the markets somewhat managed to slow down and are not quite as agitated as they used to be, but we are currently optimistic, but we are also prudent enough to know and to say that we are, of course, depending on the framework conditions that will develop in this sphere that is on the economic level, on the level of currency, and we cannot influence that. With a view to the forecast for Germany, we see a potential growth of 1 to 2%. This may appear to be not too impressive, but please be aware of the fact that these are absolutely large figures compared to the growth compared to that of other countries. The UNWTO sees the prospect of a growth between 2 and 4%, but of course in terms of percentages, especially the new and the threshold or the recently developed destinations are part of this, and there are markets that have a stronger two-digit growth, of course, but in absolute numbers they are still relatively smaller. And so, just to repeat, Germany, with a view to the overall absolute economic performance in tourism, it is one of the strongest countries, and according to all forecasts that we have, this is going to go on until 2020. We will be leading in Europe by far, even with a view to the new source markets. Germany will remain one of the strongest source markets, so in that respect we have a very good starting position indeed. Now, in closing, I would like to talk about some subjects. I mean, we've got an international panel here, but these are subjects that we have to deal with in Germany and in other countries too, time and again. The question is, what can we do in order to improve the framework conditions of our industry, in order to do away with obstacles, speaking about tax impediments and other possible obstacles. We call this policy for growth, so this is about the creation of framework conditions that allows us to grow. The background is, in Germany, quite simply, that we have had some 2.9 million people in Germany who are more or less directly employed in the tourism industry, some 7% of the whole workforce. We have to keep repeating this figure because it makes quite clear the economic prowess of and the economic importance of tourism. So this is not just lobbyism for the sake of lobbying. This is actually standing up for growth of a strong industry that actually shows that it's got the potential for growth. And this is why we are so committed. And that is why we try to do away with any kind of obstacle impediment to growth on all the different possible levels. As you know, there are some central issues, like, for example, the overnight stay bed tax or the aviation tax and the European emission trading fee. And let me just give you 3 short examples in order to keep this short. With a view to the activities that we want to unfold, you know that many municipalities had the idea of introducing so-called bed tax, an overnight tax. It's now being called a cultural and promotional tax, but finally it is a bad tax, and this leads to the fact that, of course, overnight stays become more expensive. The Federal Administrative Court in 2012 said that at least for business travelers, who are not there to enjoy cultural highlights, that at least for business travelers this is not allowable. So some municipalities started creating a scheme of a so-called bad tax light. So they have to ask their customers whether they want to stay there overnight for private purposes or for business purposes, and we think that this is absolutely nonsense, that it cannot be carried on. This needs to be done away with, and we need to formulate this quite clearly. The second issue, and in some of your countries you may be faced with a similar situation, the aviation tax. In Great Britain it's called APD. So there is this idea to actually place an additional tax burden on the aviation industry, and this is, of course, is highly problematical, because in aviation, as you know, and just take a look at the examples and the results of the large carriers, their profit margins are very, very thin. So this just leads to the costs being handed down to the customers, and this is why we are in favor of abandoning this extra tax. And we have welcomed the initiative of the upper house in Germany, and we will go on struggling for the abandonment of the putting away of this tax. And then, of course, the emission trading. This leads to competitive distortion, and the EU also introduced this emission trading scheme for airlines, and there was pressure from non-European countries who quite clearly opposed this measure, and who also made quite clear threats with a view to withdrawing from markets. So we currently see only European aviation companies that are being burdened with this special levy, and the travels abroad or intercontinental flights, for example, are exempt from this. So you can see that the issues can be compared in all the different areas, and my most important takeaway message is that we, as an association representing an industry and all the different branches of the industry, so I'm not only representing the operators but also hotel owners and the carriers. This is an industry that generates growth, and we have to stand up for sensible framework conditions, and we have to try and do away with extra burdens that otherwise impede a booming industry. We think this is something that is worth struggling for. And so let me please close by saying, after this appeal to politics, that we will keep up our efforts, and what is good for tourism is good for Mr. Göke, for Indonesia, for everyone here on the panel, also for the German Travel Association and its members. We are in a very stable economic environment currently, but of course, as I already pointed out, it always depends on the framework conditions, and we will try and generate further growth in our industry, and I think we are having a good starting position here. Thank you very much, Dr. Frenzel.
Mr. Büchy. Yes, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, also very pleased to welcome you to this leading trade show, the ITB for travel industry in Germany, here in Berlin. And it is, of course, particularly pleasant to be able to announce good figures, excellent figures, much in line with the excellent weather that we have, and we have had excellent figures for 2012, and we have an excellent outlook for 2013. Tour operators and agencies have achieved a record turnover of 24.4 billion euros, and we can say that Germans are still willing to travel and are very much eager to travel. The final figures for the tourism year 2011, or final travel industry statistics for the fiscal year 2011-2012 that ended as per October 31st confirmed this trend. Let us look first at the economic developments. The turnover grew by 5.5%, achieving a new record level of 24.4 billion euros. We have this was an increase that actually goes beyond the forecast that we had established last year. We had biggest increases with medium-haul flights, 8.5%, confirming once again that classic travel tourism to the Mediterranean shores is certainly not abated. It is still, once again, and still is, a pillar of the German travel industry. And long-haul travel grew by 2.5%, and so-called overland travel, which includes everything that is done by car, bus, and train, grew by 1%. On Thursday this week, we will be presenting the traditional cruise travel study of the DRV, which will show that cruise travels grew by high single-digit figures in the last year. We had all kinds of problems in the sector, but despite all of these problems, growth has been posted. And at 11 o'clock on March 7th, we will be presenting this study. The number of holidays, we've also achieved another highlight by Germans spent roughly 64 billion euro last year. This is a significant rise of 2.2 billion, and the record of 62 billion in the year 2008 was broken by 2 billion, achieving 64 billion. So as far as the turnover is concerned, we have a good increase of in the range of single-digit growth. As the German Association of Tour Operators and Tour Agencies, we're particularly pleased to be able to tell you that travel agencies were also able to post a significant increase in turnover last year. This is another record in this area, and this shows that the various different channels of marketing, promoting travel, travel agencies and online travel sales can coexist very well, even though the growth on the online area is much bigger. But we do not see that there is a disappearance or a subsiding of traditional agency-bound travel. So we have a lowering of the overall number of agencies to roughly 10,000 in Germany, but the number of employees grew to a total of roughly 65,000 employees, and this shows that this sector is alive and thriving and contributing to the overall growth of the German economy. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me now to shed some light on the current year 2013. As explained at the outset, we are very much in positive territory. We expect a single-digit growth for this year, for the current year. This is based on facts and figures that we're already aware of. The period running from November to February, bookings have already been analyzed. It's too early to really give final figures, but there's strong bookings for summer vacations. The majority of Germans are also planning to go on a holiday in 2013. They are ready to check in, so to speak. We expect a growth in organized travel as far as the number of travelers are concerned, but also as far as turnover is concerned. We expect 4 to 5% growth in that area. A particular salient feature in this area is that there is a particularly strong growth in the traditional catalog offers, and we had less of a growth in so-called dynamic packeted offers, and this is linked to the fact that the the number of flight seats on offer in the German market has somehow diminished, and there are fewer capacities on offer for packeted offers. So I believe that the general restructuring in our sector is certainly not taking place, the one that was forecast in the past. The main destinations for German travelers, they remain faithful to their most favorite destinations. There are no new tendencies emerging there, so they still rely on their trusted favorite destinations, i.e. the Mediterranean destinations are very much in favor with German travelers. Something else that we do also see is that the awareness of quality has also grown. Germans spent more for travel in 2012 than in the previous year, so they're willing to picked deep into their pockets, despite all of the talk of crisis and existing crisis the world over. German tour operators were able to create an awareness for quality and to convince people of the quality of this. In the premium segment, we have growing demand, and when it comes to premium destinations, the advanced bookings for the next couple of months are very much in positive territories. We're talking about the Maldives and Seychelles, and Mauritius have been also recent host countries at the ITB, and they are very much in demand. The Arab Emirates are also particularly noticeable again, strong demand. The premium market and luxury travels do not limit themselves to a particular set of destinations, but premium travel and premium destination is also existing in a vast range of different offers as well, and they're increasingly being included in the general offers and catalogs of tour operators. This sector is growing across the board and across all destinations. Most travelers and tourists will be flocking once again to the shores of the Mediterranean and the North and Baltic seas. Particular high growth rates have been posted for the Balearics, and first and foremost led by Majorca, Turkey and Greece, and particularly pleasing is to notice is Greece's popularity in this sense. And there has also been a comeback after a drop last October, and thanks to lower prices, Greece is posting double-digit rise in travelers coming to Greece. It's one of the most important destinations for the German tourism industry, and their hospitality, the quality in all destinations in Greece, on the islands, certainly merits the loyalty of travelers, and that they make their way back to those destinations. Those who were not able to latch on or to link up to the positive growth in the last years was Bulgaria, Egypt, and Tunisia, mostly for reasons that everyone is familiar with and I don't wish to flesh out at this point. Once again, city breaks and wellness trips and the aforementioned cruise tours are very much growing in this year, and also skiing tourism in Austria is enjoying high popularity. In 2012, Germany remains the first and foremost destination of travel for Germans, and all other and most one-third of all travels are domestic, and two-thirds go abroad. Traditional destinations: Spain number one, followed by Italy and Turkey. Germany also had a strong growth in city travels, and that compensated the reduction in demand for destinations on the North Sea and the Baltic seashores, certainly linked to weather, to dire weather circumstances in the last couple of years. But we all hope, of course, that today's weather is a harbinger of the better weather to be expected this year, so that these destinations can recover from their losses last year. And I think we all Germans would stand to benefit if this summer were to be more pleasant than last year's summer. Main city destinations, Berlin, Munich, Hamburg, and Cologne, have all posted growth in arriving tourists. They are all magnets in our country, not only for Germans, but also for tourists a growing number of tourists who come from abroad. Dr. Frenzel mentioned that in his presentation. Then we also have those countries who have had growth, some who have had loss. Growth was particularly in the areas of the Mediterranean, Turkey, Spain, and the Adriatic coast, Croatia, Montenegro, and Slovenia. And last year, North Africa, Tunisia, Egypt, and Morocco were holiday destinations that had strong growth, and the Arab Peninsula as well. Among the long-haul destinations in Asia, Thailand and Bali were able to benefit strongly. Bali offers quite a diverse cultural program with very long sandy beaches and wonderful climate, and they were able to post strong growth of more than almost 10% to 153,000 travelers. So there's a strong tendency, a strong trend of German travel towards East Asia, and this is a development which, of course, is very welcome. Given that Indonesia is a partner of the ITB this year, the host country, we believe that these figures stand to grow, and we believe that the attractiveness of this destination will be propagated and made known to more people. When we look at long-haul destinations, we have a rise in the sales of trips to the U.S. and the Caribbean, but fell somewhat short of the overall tourist numbers the previous years, and then long-haul trips currently make up 7.2% of the overall travel market. We see destinations for Cyprus, Malta, Southern Africa, and Australia and Oceania. All of these destinations posted a drop in bookings. Then we have various trends that have dominated the travel market last year, but are expected to continue this year. The expanded portfolio of exclusive hotel products and city tour markets has grown, and people have more and more individual demand and individual requirements, and tour operators are trying to cater to this. We have much more sophisticated concepts that really target these groups, and the concept of organized travel, used to be called a package tour, is not only surviving, it is being overhauled, and it is adapted to the requirements of today's customers. And in this context, it should be noted that travel agencies remain the preferred sales outlets for package tours, in particular when it comes to beach holidays, tour trips, and cruises. Travel agencies remain the most important sales channels for operators, the advantage being that they offer personalized and individual advice. So globally, I think we can still say that travel agencies still have a very high ratio, and that travel tours and package tours are still the most salient and the most popular form of travel for Germans. More and more Germans appreciate the aspect of safe travel and organization, and this is exactly what organized trips by organized tour operators and travel agencies offer. People who book their holidays with tour operators expect not only a high standard of safety, but equally a high standard of quality. And it is exactly this that is represented by tour operators and tour agencies. They represent the highest standard of quality, reliable service, and maximum levels of safety. Thank you for your attention.
Den Scheinwerfer auf das
Thank you very much. Now that has shed the limelight on our partner country, Indonesia. Excellency, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'd like to wish everybody a good morning, and thank you, all of you, for coming to this press conference. Indonesia is very honored and very proud to be the official country partner this year, and I'm very happy to have brought you the sunshine. And if you want to see more sunshine, come to Indonesia, because we are stretching 5,000 kilometers across the equator with 17,000 islands. There's more. Bali is only one of the islands, by the way. And there's plenty of sunshine for you there. And if Mr. Büchy just then mentioned the summer in Germany, or was it Europe, was not so good, so the travel was not so good. That's what I caught from your presentation. So if the summer is not so good this year, come to Indonesia. You'll have plenty of sunshine. So I'd like to thank ITB for giving us the pleasure to be the official country this year. I think ITB is the biggest tourism fair in the world, and that's why we are especially honored to be the country partner. And our message this year is really come to wonderful Indonesia. And we want to share with you what is so wonderful about Indonesia. So we have called our event branding is Indonesia, the world's heart of wonders. You might wonder, what does that mean, heart of wonders? It really means two things. You will find countless wonders centered in Indonesia or at the heart of Indonesia. You can start with all the culture, the 8 UNESCO World Heritage Sites, that we are the second largest mega biodiversity in the world, 12% of the coral reefs in the world and 25% of the fish species, for instance, you will find in Indonesia. The largest Buddhist temple in the world, Borobudur. Wonders of nature, such as the prehistoric Komodo dragon, which you saw in the film. 400 volcanoes. We have also rich cultural heritage. You can see it in our cloth, in our culinary. And you will also find it in the rich herbal products that you find. You will see some of those samples in our pavilion. So it's no wonder we used to be called the Spice Islands, if you recall. So that's, I can go on. There are countless wonders. That's why we have used the theme branding or event branding for this year, Indonesia, the world's heart of wonders. But more importantly, the second reason why we consider Indonesia the world's heart of wonders, it's because it's where the human heart works wonders. It's, you know, we are an old civilization. Why it's wonderful? Because it's the way the people have taken care of nature, of culture, and we have such a rich culture heritage and local wisdom, which you will find in the way we have taken care of the rice paddies that are still being used today, in the rich cloth and culinary that you will see in full display tonight, and what we are wearing today. You will see all my delegation wearing it. For thousands of years, we have Indonesian people have lived with nature and taken care of nature and taken care of all that their culture. And that is why the wonders of Indonesia are really the genuine works of the heart. And Indonesians work fully with their heart and will welcome you fully with their heart. And that is why Indonesian people smile a lot. You can see the boy over here. He's smiling at you to come. And we do everything with our whole heart. So I hope you will see some of this in display starting tonight. We will have for you the welcoming, the opening ceremony and the welcoming culture performance. And we are especially honored this year, of course, because the opening ceremony will be officiated by Chancellor Merkel and the President of Indonesia, President Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono, because we are also here on a state visit. So I think this is really a special event, marking the relationship between our two countries, marking the importance of ITB Berlin. I wonder how many times Chancellor Merkel has opened this fair. Not that often. So, so we are very especially honored that this is going to be officiated by our two leaders, and we will also have a performance of an orchestra, our orchestra, and the Berlin Construction Orchestra, showing the blend of cultures and performances. And we will be having performances from Aceh, Bali, and many other regions. So basically what we are going to show you tonight, and in the culinary delights that we will serve you tonight, and in our pavilion, is really a feeler or an appetizer for the sights, sounds, and tastes of Indonesia. But to really know what it's like, you have to come to Indonesia. That's why if you had watched our movie just then, it says feeling is believing. So to believe it, you have to feel it, really feel it, and come to Indonesia. But we hope that we give you a good appetizer. Our pavilion is in Hall 26A, and we are going to show you the diversity of tourist destinations: Sumatra, Kalimantan, Sulawesi, Java, Bali, Nusa Tenggara, and Papua. Bali is one of them, but clearly there are many more places beyond Bali. And we have such a rich traditional culture and ethnic grouping and so on. And the shape, I just wanted to tell a little story about the shape of the pavilion, which is inspired by the wooden Finisi boat, which is coming from South Sulawesi. And it comes from an ethnic group called Bugis, which are seafarers. And they went all over the world, including ending up in South Africa. You will find actually a Bugis village in South Africa. And this boat is still being used for taking cargo, for fishing, as well as now we are using it for tourists. to go for discovery and diving cruises in the many waters of Indonesia. So you can enjoy the rich marine biodiversity sites in Indonesia using this Finisi boat. And it also shows you how we have been able to preserve and have local wisdom in preserving our culture, and that in Indonesia you will find many living traditions. It's our way of life, and that will be what you will find if you visit Indonesia. I just wanted to say a few more words regarding the development of tourism in Indonesia. I listened very carefully to the previous two presentations. Indonesia is fortunate that we were able to grow last year. Our tourism growth last year was 5.2%, which is higher than the world average of 2 to 4%. And I guess you were lamenting a little bit about the low growth in Germany, but of course you have a large base. And tourism is an important sector for many countries, including Indonesia. It contributes almost 10 billion to foreign exchange reserves, number 5 earner, 7% to employment, and really creates also a lot of jobs and growth. And I would agree totally with Dr. Frenzel when he said that, you know, when you are trying to make argument to your policymakers, that tourism creates growth, and that's why it's important to remove the impediments. I would make it stronger. Tourism generates growth, jobs, foreign exchange, regional development, community development, and makes people happy. That's an important job. Yeah, makes people happy, and I think the people who work in the tourism industry are probably happy people too. So, quality of life, not just economic sustainability. See, all of you are smiling, so you all must be very happy people. And people told me since I became tourism minister, I look much younger and I'm smiling a lot. So, I'm inclined to agree. And Germany is one of our largest markets, and that's why we are also here in the fair. And Mr. Büchy said, Büchy, how do I pronounce your name? Büchy. Mr. Büchy said, it's good news that Germans are still willing to travel abroad. And I can tell you that our growth rate of inbound tourism from Germany in 2012 was 8.5%. So that's good news for us. And the average length of stay went up by 2 days, from 11.2 days in 2010 to almost 2 weeks in 2012. So that makes you twice the average for our general average for other tourists. And most importantly, average spending. From 2000 to it's now in 2012, 2,440 euro per trip, making you 3 times higher than the average. So we really like you. We really like German tourists, and we hope that more of you will come after ITB Berlin. And certainly that's how my finance ministry and my parliament will measure whether I get an increase in my promotion budget. But I would say with the growth, the employment, and making people happy, we do deserve a lot more attention from policy, whether it's incentive, whether it's greater budget and greater priority. But I would say that in our case, the priority couldn't even is really high now in Indonesia, including the president coming here and the chancellor with him coming to open the fair. So in conclusion, I hope that all of you will come tonight for the opening ceremony, enjoy the culture performance, enjoy the culinary delights, come to visit our pavilion in Hall 26A, and we have other events in the other pavilions as well. We have many events all throughout the next week, and I hope that all of you can get an appetite, a feeler for the sights, sounds, and tastes of Indonesia. And we even provide you in the space of our pavilion. If you get tired after walking around this huge exhibition hall, you can come and have a massage, a foot massage, yeah, and experience our rich cultural heritage in terms of the spa as well as the herbal products that go with it. So once again, I hope that not only have we brought you sunshine, but we've also brought you a lot of good news about what's so wonderful about Indonesia, and that you will not only enjoy the sunshine that we've brought here, but that you will come to Indonesia and enjoy lots of sunshine and smiles from the hospitality of the Indonesian people. Thank you.
Your Excellency, thank you very much, and we're very much looking forward to the presentations of the next couple of days and your pavilion. Mr. Javier, please, you have the floor.
Excellency Dr. Mari Pangestu, Minister of Tourism and Creative Economy of Indonesia, Dr. Göke, Managing Director, Messe, Berlin, Dr. Frenzel, President of Bundesverband der Deutschen Tourismuswirtschaft, Mr. Jürgen Büchy, President of the Deutsche Reiseverband. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Ich freue mich, mit Ihnen heute hier zu sein. I would like to start by thanking ITB for the kind invitation addressed to you and WTO to join this press conference. We also have many important activities here at ITB along this week in beautiful Berlin, some of them already mentioned by Dr. Göke. Allow me on this occasion to share with you the latest international tourism results and our prospects for 2013, as well as some of the priorities we consider need to be tackled if we are to ensure continued growth for the tourism sector. 2012 was a very difficult year for the world economy, and particularly for the Eurozone. Nevertheless, and despite growing global economic volatility, international tourist arrivals grew by 3.8% to reach, for the first time, a historic milestone of over 1 billion tourists, more precisely 1,035 million tourists crossing international borders in a single year. Results were naturally diverse around the world. Growth was stronger in Asia, 7%, followed by Africa with 6%, which recovered from the setbacks of 2011 in North Africa. Arrivals to the Americas grew by 4%, while overall results in the Middle East were still on the negative. Yet, in this respect, it's important to highlight the recovery of Egypt, where arrivals grew by 17%. As for Europe, the most visited region in the world, 51% overall, tourist numbers were up by 3.3%, a very positive result in view of the economic situation in the region, and particularly following the strong growth of 2011 of 6.1%. In terms of outbound markets, the highest growth in terms of expenditure abroad came from the emerging economies of China, plus 42%, and Russia, 31% in the positive. Other important traditional source markets showed very good results. The United States with 7%, the UK, which returned to growth in 2012 after 2 flat years, registered an increase of 5% in tourism spending abroad, as well as Germany with a 3% growth in expenditure on travel abroad. By the way, German tourism has been growing consistently in all directions for many years now, not only outbound, but domestic and especially inbound business and leisure tourism, both in arrivals and income. For 2013, UNWTO forecasts international tourist arrivals to increase by 3 to 4%, much in line with our long-term forecast, which points to a growth of 3.8% per year on average between 2010 and 2020. In Europe, growth is expected to be at between 2 and 3% in 2013. In view of these results, I trust ITB, one of the major tourism fairs in the world, will be once again the ideal stage for all public and private stakeholders of our sector to show their dynamism and capacity to adjust and grow amidst constant change. On this occasion, we should also recall the importance of governments around the world supporting our sector and implementing policies which allow for tourism to continue growing in a sustainable and sustained manner, such as visa facilitation, intelligent taxation, improved connectivity, and support at the highest government level with cross-cutting policies. Overall, the right policies we have been talking about for growth and to generate much-needed jobs. In this respect, allow me to compliment Minister Pangestu for the relevance Indonesia has gained in the world tourism market in recent years. Indonesia is a country of reference in many aspects, with wonderful cultural and natural resources, as we have seen. Yet, I would like to particularly praise Indonesia's clear commitment to sustainable tourism development. Indeed, UNWTO is pleased and proud to be presenting this year within the program of the ITB Convention, a project we have been developing with the Ministry of Tourism of Indonesia to address the challenge of climate change. Ladies and gentlemen, at UNWTO, we are quite assured that 2013 will be one more positive year overall for Germany, for Indonesia, and for the world tourism overall. Have a great ITB. Vielen Dank.
Vielen Dank, Herr Favilla. Wir kommen jetzt zu Ihren Fragen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Favilla. Now let's move on to your questions. Please give us your name and the name of the medium you're writing for, reporting for, and please now raise your hands if you want to take the floor. My name is Van Tauklus from the Berlin Press Agency. A question to Mr. Göke and to Mr. Büchy. Concerning the question of Messe Berlin and DRV, with a view to selling or the sales of trips and tickets at the ITB, have you come to an agreement? Because you will try to generate some sales here. Are there restrictions with a view to rebates granted at the trade fair here? Now, this controversial issue, have you come to an agreement here? That is one question. And on the other hand, will this trade fair again develop towards becoming more of a visitors' trade fair? You know, we've got all the exhibitors and the specialized visitors, but do you wish to make it more appealing to the general public? Thank you very much for your question. Quite unexpected. Mr. Büchy, I will try to, do the preliminary work and then you can fill in the gaps. Now, the fact that we both are sitting here quite satisfied and even looking better than the past, perhaps, here may be an indication as to the fact that we have come to some form of agreement. We have talked about the issue, and it is of course, our task to further develop this trade fair as a format. And we've talked about dynamism and growth here today, and dynamism and growth also implicitly always means a kind of change. And so we try to, of course, follow on upon the wishes of our exhibitors and satisfy their needs. And what is decisive is that this was not meant to be a kind of activity that was directed against the interests of the DRV and Mr. Büchy. I think it is very good if the trade fair tries out new ways and new paths. What is important is to also be ready to come to the right conclusions after having tried out new solutions. And I think that I will sit down with Mr. Büchy and we will evaluate and assess the outcome, and then we will be ready and willing to draw the right conclusions for next year. Thank you very much, Mr. Göke. It indeed is true that, in the running up to this trade fair, we were against allowing official sales at the trade fair in the interest of the suppliers here in Berlin, who are based in Berlin, who had the fear that there may be some kind of competitive distortion that would be brought about by sales at the trade fair. But now we will just take a look at what's happening over the next couple of days. And as Mr. Göke quite rightly said, based on our partnership that's lasted for decades, we will then just after the trade fair sit down, talk about things, talk about the results. It will not lead to the DRV saying goodbye to the ITB, definitely not. So we will just go and look for solutions together, and we will carry on our decade-long cooperation. The next questions were here on this side. So, and there are
two organizations, Safari India from India and Pacific Area Travel Writer Association, PATWA, is a leading travel writer organization. And my question is that I want to congratulate Dr. Göke for making me a new chief of the Messe Berlin. And I'm sure when this organization becomes leading travel business organization in the world, I'm sure it will go to other corners of the world also to bring more people around under the banner of ITB. The second question is I want to ask another question from the Minister of Tourism from Indonesia. She should have a package from Indonesia and teach people how to smile. You know, that will be a very big campaign, you know, if you do that, how to smile, that you come and learn in Indonesia. Third question is that you have so many 200 events taking place during the ITB. I suggest that ITB should take up the cause of media also. They should organize media meetings, you know, on the subject of green tourism, on the subject of the role of media in promotion of tourism and industry. And also, in the past, you used to have a logistics support to international media. I am sure that will continue in future also.
Ja, vielen Dank für Ihre Frage. Darf ich die gleich?
Thank you very much. May I now perhaps pass on the question to Her Excellency, first of all.
Learn to smile in Indonesia. I think that was the gist of your comment, and I think we would totally agree. Not just learn to smile, but if you come to Indonesia, you will definitely smile. You will be so happy that you will be smiling a lot. And what we want to explain is really the reason why Indonesians smile a lot, and it's because of all the heart of wonders that we have in Indonesia, and it's really the way of life. You know, for Indonesia, the way we care for, we live together with nature. The culture is part of our way of life. We have living traditions also as part of our way of life. I mean, the easiest way to visualize it is visualize Borobudur, which was built in the 9th century. And we, in fact, also Prambanan, which is another set of temples near there, also around the same time. And we actually sent our stone carvers and probably the architects who designed it to Angkor Wat, to help them with Angkor Wat. So today, if you go to Borobudur, you don't just see Borobudur, but you will still see the stone craftsmen who are still living around the Borobudur area. So that's how we'd like to see, what we'd like you to see Indonesia. And that's why the reason why Indonesians smile a lot is definitely that, and that we do everything with our whole heart. And if you come to Indonesia, not only will you learn to smile, but you will be smiling all the time.
Ja, wir haben noch Zeit für eine letzte Frage.
Now we've got time for one last question over there, or two questions perhaps over there. My name is Harald Dotzes from the Austrian Journalists Club. My question goes to President Büchy. You just talked about a significant increase from 62 to 64 billions. And please allow me to ask you whether you already actually corrected this for inflation. Adjusted? Is it inflation adjusted, or is it a real increase? No, these are the real figures. It's a real increase. One last question here.
Vivek Sethi. My question is directed to Dr. Göke. Sir, you have announced in this edition of ITB Berlin, there are many new initiatives being taken care of. Are they being built after the responses you gather from the private sector? And from your on the industry, on the exhibition industry perspective, are there any direct or inverse relationship if there is an economic turmoil? Is the private sector then look more intensively to platforms like ITB Berlin to make most of the possibilities in an uncertain environment? And if these initiatives are taken in that direction only?
I have to say that I'm not that sure if I really got the inner sense of your question. What I understood is that you asked what kind of initiatives and concepts we are developing for cases of turmoil within the international community. Is that correct? Or if you can.
The new initiatives which you have introduced this year in ITB Berlin, are they built after the feedback that you receive from the private sector, keeping in mind the needs of the private sector, especially when they are confronted with an economic uncertainty?
My proposal would be, can we clarify that face-to-face after the press conference, because the private sector is kind of general terminus. I'm not really sure that I'm understanding the meaning of it in this context. But we will have this discussion 5 minutes later. Okay, thanks a lot.
Ja, vielen Dank.
Thank you very much. And of course, I would like to announce that after this press conference, we will all be available for individual interviews. And as far as I can tell, there are no further requests for the floor. I've got a very important remark to make, with which I would like to close. You already heard that this evening we will roll out the red carpet both for the Federal Chancellor and the President of the Republic of Indonesia, and that is why I would like to point out that it is indispensable for you to appear at 5 o'clock at the ICC, because we expect some major traffic problems because of roadblocks around the ICC. So please make sure that you arrive at 5 o'clock at the ICC, at the latest that's 5:30. And let me please also point out that after this press conference, there will be 3 further press conferences that will take place. I would like to thank Her Excellency Dr. Pangestu for coming, and our representative from the UNWTO, and our further members of the panel here. Thank you also for coming here, and with that, I would like to declare this press conference closed. And of course, feel cordially invited to take some press pictures here on the left-hand side. Thank you.